Renie and Christine, it's great to have you here today. I'm really excited to talk about, first of all, draft. I mean, we're in spring, we are in the off season, and yet here you've got something that creates so much excitement, 11 years of taking this on the road. Renie, talk about the evolution of draft and how important it is to NFL's overall picture of revenue and engagement.
You know what's so great about the draft began as a board meeting. And so imagine if you're in a board meeting and all of a sudden now that's televised, right? And years now here in New York City for the draft, which forever had such great excitement for the community here in the tri-state area of New York, and then obviously for our fans at home. We took it on the move a couple of years ago. It's 11 years. We've hit a lot of different markets. And what's been so great about the draft is that fans have the ability to really showcase their community in a way that they're so proud of. They cheer for their teams during the season. During this off season, they get to introduce their market to all the fans of 32 clubs across the league. And it's so exciting. What's wild about the draft is, over 12 million fans will tune into the draft. And newsflash, it is not a sporting event. Like the most excitement that happens is the commissioner gives a man hug and a hat to a guy who, by the way, imagine if that's how you got your first job. Like that's what the draft is. These young men, that it's so much, they're getting their very first job in this huge platform that is so exciting. And by the way, on draft day, 32 teams that day have the ability to win the Super Bowl. It's like the next season begins that day.
When that became an event, it really turned off season into something that was worth paying attention to. And I understand now that draft can be more highly viewed than other sports championship games. It's a really big deal. Is it a big deal as a line item in the overall profits that you're looking at for the NFL?
It's a huge deal. And I think I'm relatively new to the NFL. I started 2 years ago as CFO. And I went to my first draft. Renie's been to many, many drafts. I went to my first draft in Detroit last year, and you have just hundreds of thousands of people. The adrenaline is high. The vibe is great. And, to Renie's point, it is the biggest non-game sporting event in the country, maybe even the world. And the 12 million tuned in to view night one. Hundreds of thousands of people show up. We know that'll be the case in Green Bay this year, but it's a huge deal. And it's really part of what was remarkable to me when I started with the NFL a couple of years ago, is just the flurry of activity in the offseason and the ability for the NFL to eventize the offseason and the 365 days of the calendar, and to take these moments like combine, like draft, like schedule release coming up, like the start of training camp, and really create these great moments for fan engagement throughout the calendar year. It's just incredible.
In Green Bay, to land the NFL draft, to get that level of attention for this very small Midwestern city, it's a huge outsized deal for this. Is taking the draft on the road, is it also a way to give back to these teams that are coming from not the major metropolises of the nation?
I think so. I mean, look, we've had drafts in Super Bowl cities. When we look at Dallas has hosted the draft before, and they hosted the Super Bowl, but it does give an opportunity for these smaller markets that have huge, insane fan bases to be able to celebrate football. And in a Super Bowl-like setting for 3 days, it is a celebration of football that's happening. And what's unique about Green Bay, there will be thousands and thousands of Packer fans there, but there also will be thousands and thousands of the other 31 clubs coming on to Green Bay like they've never seen before.
It's a much better time to see Lambeau Field.
Be electric, yes.
Yeah,
be electric.
and I think something like half of the NFL teams have expressed interest in hosting a draft. So it's just become this fantastic event that the clubs really want to host.
Who doesn't want to host it?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Who wouldn't want to host the draft?
I mean, everyone wants to host the draft. I mean, look, if every club could host a Super Bowl, they would love to do that. It takes infrastructure, and the cities are somewhat unique as the hundreds of thousands of people that come to town for that. But the draft has really been so exciting. Again, the last 11 years that we've been able to travel the draft. And as Christine mentioned, I mean, really eventizing something that at one point was a board meeting.
All right, so talk to me a little bit about flag football, because we're going to see it in the Olympics. How important is that to making it official in the minds of Americans that this is a real sport with real future? And then what are the aspirations where a formal professional league goes for flag football?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, just prior to coming over here, Renie and I were in a flag football meeting talking exactly about the RFP we have out in the marketplace around men's and women's professional flag football. And there's been tremendous interest since we put that into the marketplace right around Super Bowl time. It's incredibly exciting. I mean, this is a sport that has been traditionally a men's sport. And to think about this opportunity and this moment of time when there's such great energy around women's sports, when there's such great investment opportunity in women's sports, now all of a sudden we have a vehicle for young girls to play the game, up through from youth through high school, through college, and potentially professionally. As you mentioned, flag football will be in the Olympic Games in Los Angeles in 2028. We don't want that to be a one and done. We're looking ahead to Brisbane in 2032 and beyond that. So we're spending a ton of time thinking about it, thinking about how it can help grow the game, how it can help be an entry point for young girls and for women, how it can help our international strategy. And so there are a ton of objectives, but I think it's really exciting.
Well, and another objective too is just that football development. It's really important that when young kids start to play football, that they learn to play it safely. And flag really offers that entryway into that. Also offers an entryway for parents and family. The community of football is so great. Again, we're unifying, but it is a really wonderful community, and coming in through flag really helps parents understand the game, feel really great about their kids playing the game, both boys and girls. And then you can go in through other areas, high school, college. I mean, this is a great opportunity for women in Title IX. As you think about the college space and how universities are supporting women playing sports. And then the Olympics. I mean, look, if I had known that trampoline was going to be an Olympic sport when I was 8 years old, my career might have been different. But now that flag football is going to be in LA 28, it's so exciting to see what women athletes are going to come out and be, the next Simone Biles, the next, amazing athletes, Serena Williams, that are Olympic athletes, to be able to represent your country playing flag football is really exciting.
Clearly, the fact that Serena Williams is interested and has shown her interest in participating in the RFP for flag football, it shows that more broadly, there's something there. I'm interested about trampoline though, because I thought it would have been breaking.
If breaking hadn't lost its steam after Paris, maybe there still would have been hope in LA, but it lost its steam. We'll never know, America.
When we think about international, there's more expansion. There's, Spain for the first time, a new city in Germany. You're going to Berlin for the first time. You're going back to Brazil. Why is international expansion for the NFL such a priority, Christine?
Well, I think you think about it, and it is clearly our top investment priority right now. And as you think about the potential for this game that has been so wildly popular in the United States and has been more than just a sport, but a real unifier. And you think about now, how do we extend that globally? And, we fully recognize that we're not coming into new markets and new international markets as the top sport. We have a long way to go. And the strategy that we've deployed to create such great success in this country, we're going to have to develop new muscles and think about it a little bit differently. And we're going to have to be patient in doing so. And it's going to take investment and time. And we're going to have to start with building fandom in order for those longer term returns to come. So it's a top priority for us. But the potential to be a global property and to bring this great game to the rest of the world is huge for us. It's a huge opportunity.
How do you go about getting a return on that investment?
Well, I think it all starts with building fans, right? It starts with getting the rest of the world. We talked about flag football. Flag football is one way to get youth in other countries to learn the game, right? We're not a soccer or basketball where you have youth in these international countries who know and grow up playing the sport. So flag is one way to get the rest of the world to learn and hopefully love the game. But we got to start with building fandom. And that starts with efforts on the ground in markets. It starts with deploying the best of the best in terms of the domestic experts to really figure out how we can quickly get the rest of the world to understand and to love and to see the game. But it starts with building fandom, and then once the fandom is there, then the consumption comes, the media value, et cetera. But it all starts with building the fandom.
Right now, if you have the Packers playing in Brazil, how many of the fans that show up are just expats who happen to be there and are so excited to see US football rather than international football, aka soccer?
It depends on the market. And I mean, we're clearly a challenger brand when we go into some of these countries. And last year when we played in Brazil, a higher percentage of those fans were local from Brazil because they wanted to be there and be present as the Packers and the Eagles were playing that first game in that
Sold out in like 90 minutes.
Sold out in 90 minutes, which is pretty incredible. Our merchandise sales were through the roof. We had great partners come in and participate. We had a great halftime show. It's a little bit of a mini Super Bowl happening in that market during that time. And so it's great enthusiasm as we think about really putting our flag in a country and watching it grow. You know, we had played and had a league in Germany years ago, over 20 years ago. And when we left Germany, we planted a lot of seeds of fandom there. And now that we've been playing in Germany for a few years, we had a game in Munich last year. As you mentioned, we're in Berlin next year. The fandom there is electric. I mean, when you walk around, you feel there, you see Giant fans, you see last year Panther fans. I mean, Kansas City Chiefs fans are activating, and they're not just activating as a club. They've got local market partners activating with them in some of these key countries, which has been very exciting to see. And so as we go back into London for 3 games this year, we've got a game in Ireland, we'll be in Spain. In 2026, we're playing in Australia. A lot of our parts of our growth within these countries, it's not, you know, it's not just playing those games. We also have football development happening. We have programs called the NFL Academy, where we're focusing on finding the next NFL player, player pathway. Again, finding and teaching like football development to athletes that want to play football and find their way here domestically playing in the National Football League. And we have a variety of those happening also in Africa and Ghana and Nigeria as well. And so there's a variety of different objectives per country, but it is that fan growth to get to at some point a leading global brand across the entire planet. I mean, ultimately, it would be the focus.
Yeah, and you see, you know, Renie made the point about players. That's an important aspect. I think there were 85 players last year who were not born in the United States. And you think about a Jordan Mailata on the Eagles Super Bowl winning team. You know, that's an important aspect as well. And you look at other leagues having that success with the football, with the academies and sort of those homegrown players. Like, that's a big part of it as well.
The fact that, I mean, you have legalized gambling in so many of the places where you're offering up the games. We know that sports gambling legally in the United States has increased engagement among NFL fans. Are you seeing that internationally as well, where there is legal sports betting, that it helps you grow your brand?
Some. I mean, I think as a challenger brand, in some of those countries, we don't show up as a sport that people are betting on. And so that's, again, another opportunity for us in those countries where maybe we're not one of the top 3 sports that people bet on. And so that's an opportunity for us for sure.
The interesting thing about international right now is that we're in the middle of great upheaval. The tariffs, the trade war, the fact that the way the current administration has engaged with or alienated other countries who were allies has created a lot of consternation. Are you worried that there will be brand backlash against anything USA related in these areas where you're trying to establish a presence?
Yeah, we're certainly very mindful of everything going on domestically, internationally as well. I mean, I think the good news is from a global strategy perspective, we don't think it's going to impact our intention to enter into markets, to grow fandom, to play games. We have good relationships with the governments in those, you know, Renie mentioned the new markets we're playing in this year, as well as the markets we're returning to. And at the end of the day, we'd like to think about, you know, in this sort of chaotic world that we live in, right? We like to think about sports as a unifier, and it brings people together in a way that other things don't. And we think that's very powerful. We've certainly seen the power of that with the NFL in the United States during chaotic times. And we hope we can bring that to the rest of the world in terms of the ability to unify.
That reminds me of, when we had COVID, and just if we like go back and flash back on the draft, Roger Goodell hosted the draft from his basement. And it was one of the quote unquote first sporting events back when COVID happened. And we did what we felt like brought the country together in a really, I remember watching it with my family, and at that point it was such a unifying way. And we hope, again, as we go to different countries and or we have events across the globe, that we can continue to do that, bring people together in special moments, families, friends, teams, all of that as a unifying bond for sure.
I'm thinking about the fact that some of your revenue comes in through merchandising and through licensing. Two things. One, tariffs affect the materials, especially gear, hats and T-shirts and shoes that would be brought in that would have to do with that sort of licensing and merchandising. And two, with global economists now looking more skeptically at slowing economies, or is the world going to enter recession? That will affect consumer spending, of course. Is that something that you're strategizing about now with your partners? Are you thinking about that internally? How do we position ourselves if that's the trajectory?
I think when we talk to our partners, especially those in the licensing space, it is something that we're focused on. And as Christine mentioned, we're being mindful about. Also in that business, you plan ahead. And so things that fans will have the ability to purchase this season have already been purchased, or already being produced, and are already typically here. And so some of that planning has already happened, which is great. But we're going to continue to be close with our partners and think about that, and then we'll pivot and adjust as we need to make sure that there are products available for our fans to enjoy the NFL like they normally do.
Yeah, and I would say we're absolutely mindful of it, and it's multifaceted, right? As we think about our local clubs who are building stadiums and going through new stadium renovations, how the cost of material might affect them. We think about it, obviously, you mentioned the potential for a slowing economy. Obviously, that would affect discretionary spend and how that could affect us in season and out of season. But, and then we think about our advertising partners, right? We're about to go into the upfronts. And so how will the potential for a slowing economy affect our advertising partner? Obviously, it's in our best interest to make sure they stay strong and healthy. So we're doing a lot of analysis, sort of looking at a number of different scenarios, as I know any company is doing at this point in time. But we're mindful of all those impacts.
I know that the NFL cleared $23 billion last year, and that there's a $416 million distribution now for the teams. That's up almost 9% from last year. But is that growth going to be challenged in the next year or the years to come?
Well, I think as we look about it, the great news is that there's growing demand for the content, right? As you look at our consumption year over year, we hit records with viewership, with the Super Bowl, with our playoffs this year. It continues to grow despite challenges in the media environment and traditional TV landscape. We also have 11-year media contracts, which is great. And we strategically, before my time at the NFL, negotiated 7-year outs. And so as we think about that, we're certainly looking at the environment. We're certainly looking at the outcome of the NBA media rights deal, which was very successful for them. And looking, we're going to be mindful and thoughtful as we look at those 7-year outs. They were strategic for us, and we're going to take a hard look at that.
This is an area you know a lot about because you were doing this for NBC Sport Group, where it came through for the PGA and other things. So you have a lot of experience. When you're looking at the NBA deal, $76 billion over 11 years, does that immediately say to the NFL, now, wait a minute, we have a lot more value? Does that make you think that there will absolutely be some exercising of the window that comes up? Is it 2029?
Yeah, it's after 2029 season. So it'll make us take a hard look, right? I think we would have taken a hard look anyway. We love the flexibility and the sort of strategic outcome of having those 7-year outs in our contracts. I think looking at what the NBA deal, looking at the health of that environment, we're certainly going to take a hard look for sure. And yes, I have the perspective of being on the other side of that negotiation at NBC Sports, and so it'll be interesting.
Are the contracts too long, given the pace of technological advances? I mean, the way that we saw streaming take over the eyeballs for traditional media. I mean, is 11 years locking you into contracts where the whole world can change now in a couple years?
Yeah, and we know it does. And I think that's why, as you look at, from a media standpoint, we look at keeping our partners, our existing partners, very strong, but also strategically looking at the potential to develop new partners. I mean, you saw last season the 2 Christmas Day games on Netflix, which were highly successful. And we had a great partnership with Netflix where both the NFL and Netflix leaned in the most meaningful way to make sure the outcome was successful there. Those are the kind of things we want to do. And that's how we're always thinking about how we can deliver great content to the broadest possible audiences through the great media partners that we have, but also looking at how do we develop new ones.
The rules changed that allowed a 10% ownership stake to go to private equity. How's that going? I'll defer to Christine.
Yeah, I would say it's going very well. So this was approved by membership last summer, and we saw our first 2 private equity fund transactions through Arctos and Ares with the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins at the end of last summer. We took a very thoughtful approach to approving private equity. These are passive investments. You won't see private equity funds making coaching decisions, but it's going very well. The 10% works for the league. I think we took a bit of a crawl, walk, run approach. We looked at what other leagues had done, but didn't necessarily replicate that. And out of the gate, so far so good. There's interest. There's enough capital in the marketplace. And we're really pleased with the funds that have been approved to work with us.
You have a rather unusual career path, not just that you were working in media before you went to the NFL, but even before that, you're a U.S. Army veteran. How does your experience in the military inform how you're leading now the financial offices of the NFL?
Well, first of all, I'm super proud of my military service and the utmost respect for all the U.S. servicemen and women who are serving. It was foundational for me, absolutely. It was. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. Just the ability to understand how people operate, to understand that you really have to learn and listen and navigate in change, and deal with an ever-changing, fast-paced, adrenaline-filled environment that is very similar to what the National Football League is. So it was incredibly foundational for me. I learned a ton. The military does a phenomenal job of training and making sure that you're ready for every sort of different scenario, but they also throw you in the deep end sometimes, and that's a way to learn. And for me, it was a tremendous learning environment for me and completely foundational.
If we were sitting here 5 years from now, and I was asking you to describe the growth of the NFL, Renie, what would have been, what do you predict would be the single most transformative factor for the NFL in the next 5 years?
Well, in the next 5 years, I think that we will be serving fans across the globe in a way that we never imagined. I think that we have audacious goals. I think that we're really bold, but I think we will surprise ourselves as we go into these countries and they are introduced to our game that is so unifying, that does bring people together. And I think that we will, even though we are never complacent and we are always pushing to succeed, I think we will exceed our expectations.
What do you think, Christine?
I think global growth. I think if we can 5 years from now, and by the way, I think we all fully recognize it's going to take a lot more longer than 5 years to really be a prominent global sport. But I think if we have moved the needle in a very meaningful way as it relates to engaging with fans around the world and getting them to learn and love and know our game, that will be transformative.
Can I just say what a pleasure it's been for me to sit with the women of the NFL? Thank you both for joining me today. Appreciate it.